Fame made them untouchable. Until life reminded them they're human too.
The sun sets over the sweeping plains of the Dutton Ranch, the wind carrying the faint echoes of a rifle's crack, the low hum of tractor engines in the distance, and the silhouette of a man, tall, weather-beaten, unyielding. That man is not only the fictional patriarch of a sprawling Western saga, but in truth, the creative force behind it. The man whose next move in Hollywood is sending shockwaves across the studio lot. In one singular moment, the world realized that Taylor Sheridan, creator of the juggernaut Yellowstone verse and architect of a rugged, uncompromising cinematic voice, has turned a page. He has accepted a new frontier, leaving the fortress of Paramount Global to forge a 5-year, 9-figure deal with NBCUniversal, beginning in 2029, promising film and television creations for Universal Pictures and Peacock. In that moment, the filmmaking landscape shifted. A kingmaker steps away from his throne. The western dust lifts, revealing the horizon of what comes next. Because Sheridan is not just moving companies, he is writing a new chapter of creative freedom and reinvention. And we are about to tell that story. In the vast expanses of America's heartland, the kind of place where the sky feels infinite and the land seems to stretch beyond time, there emerged a storyteller whose voice carried the grit and grandeur of the great frontier. Taylor Sheridan, actor turned writer, writer turned director, director turned television emperor. Born June 21, 1970, Sheridan grew up in small-town Texas, learning early that the world could be both beautiful and brutal, and that stories mattered. He starred in supporting roles in shows like Sons of Anarchy, but it was behind the camera where he found his voice, sharp, elemental, unflinching. With his screenplay for Sicario, 2015, he announced himself, the drug war, the desert, the moral poses of us versus them, the ambiguity in between. Then came Hell or High Water, 2016, a modern neo-Western, equal parts poetry and pistol fire, which earned him acclaim and revealed his thematic orbit. Men at the edge, morality and profit, land and legacy. Then television called, and Sheridan answered by building a universe. The Dutton family, the sprawling ranch, the conflicts of tradition and progress, of blood ties and corporate suits. Yellowstone. And then the prequels, 1883, 1923. Side spins like Tulsa King, Landman, Mayor of Kingstown. The frontier motif expanded, from cowboys to lawmen, from ranches to boardrooms. He built worlds populated with men and women who operate by instinct, honor, and sometimes violence. But more than that, Sheridan built trust. He built a filmmaking machine built on his Texas land, his ranches, his vision. A man who refused to compromise. In one interview, he said, "I spent the first 37 years of my life compromising. When I quit acting, I decided that I am going to tell my stories my way, period." He built his stories on the land, on authenticity, on the smell of tobacco and sweat and leather. He demanded budgets. He demanded creative freedom. He wanted to shoot on his Texas ranch, to film the long shadows and wide horizons of a world most viewers only dream of. And he got it. Even the industry noticed, with budgets for his shows often reaching tens of millions per episode. Now, in the autumn of 2025, Sheridan stands at a crossroads. The war room lights inside Hollywood are flickering. The suits at Paramount glower at his budgets. NBCUniversal opens the door. The man who once chronicled the end of the American frontier is about to write a new one. This is his story. Our story. The story of Taylor Sheridan's grand leap. It was 2015 when Sheridan's screenplay for Sicario exploded on the scene. An echoing hall of gunfire in Sonora, a moral vacuum, Emily Blunt's haunted eyes, Benicio del Toro's quiet menace. The film made an instant mark. The drug war told through a lens of brutal realism, legacy, regret. For Sheridan, it was his professional arrival, a writer with nothing to prove. In that moment, Sheridan looked at the screen and said, "This is how I tell stories." And Hollywood watched. In 2016, Hell or High Water landed. Buddy Western meets bank heist. Texas Red Dirt meets familial obligation. It was the story of brothers robbing banks to save the land their mama left them. The land is a character. The makeshift plan is failing. The police lieutenant is worn. Sheridan's dialogue crackled. The horizon bled orange. It was beautiful. It was tragic. And the critics could not deny him anymore. From that moment, he became the shepherd of the modern Western revival. Then television. 2018's Yellowstone, starring Kevin Costner, bursts through the frontier screen. A ranch, the Duttons, the cattle, the corporate sharks, the land grabs, the family wars. The series becomes a juggernaut. Sheridan writes deep myth. He shoots big. He turns his Texas ranches into studio lots, his stories into franchises. By 2023 and beyond, he is the backbone of Paramount's streaming strategy. The world watches. In that moment, Taylor Sheridan becomes more than a writer or producer. He becomes a brand, a universe builder, a Western auteur for the binge generation. And now, October 26, 2025, the news breaks that Sheridan will leave Paramount for NBCUniversal after his current deal ends, with a first-look film deal beginning in 2026 and a full TV transition in January 2029. In that moment, we realize the frontier has shifted again. The man who built one empire is about to build another. The camera opens wide. Dawn mist on the Texas plains, cattle lowing, a ranch hand leaning on a fence, distant oil pumps turning slowly. Over the hum of the wind, we hear the voiceover. In the land of open horizons, of red dirt and rusted metal, a story is always beginning or ending. In between is the dust kicked up by boots, the crack of a rifle, the roar of a city's engines in the distance. That is the world of Taylor Sheridan. But the story of Sheridan himself began somewhere quieter, in small Texas towns, in modest beginnings. Young Taylor looked out across the land and asked, "What stories aren't being told?" In his early 30s, he left behind acting roles and full-time reliability, and began writing scripts that spoke to something old but unresolved: land, morality, identity. In 2012, he sold his first script, and in 2015, Sicario arrived. It was violent, unsentimental, deeply felt. He kept writing. Hell or High Water followed. He didn't just write scripts, he wove atmospheres. He built characters whose moral compasses were worn and cracked, but still pointed. Then he moved into television. With Yellowstone, he created a world where the American West was not a myth, but a breathing, bleeding entity. The ranch became a stage for power plays, family betrayal, corporate encroachment, the old ways and the new. The cinematography, wide shots of plains and mountains, dark interiors of boardrooms and bunkhouses, gave it weight. The series became cultural phenomenon. Sheridan's success was no accident. He had insisted early on autonomy. For example, he often used his own Texas ranches, built infrastructure that let him shoot on his terms, negotiate budgets that many considered stratospheric. He spoke openly about never compromising again. He said his first 37 years were full of compromise. Now he would tell his stories his way. Paramount recognized this talent. They invested in it. They built a streaming franchise around his work. Shows like 1883, 1923, Tulsa King, Landman, Mayor of Kingstown, all under his aegis, all rooted in his DNA. He became one of Paramount's biggest assets, but the winds of Hollywood change relentlessly. In August 2025, Paramount Global closed its merger with Skydance Media to form Paramount Skydance. New leadership arrived. David Ellison as Chairman CEO, former NBCUniversal exec Jeff Shell as president. Massive restructuring loomed. Budgets came under scrutiny. Some of the creative independence Sheridan had enjoyed began to feel constricted. In the halls of the new regime, executive changes and budget reviews became increasingly frequent. Sources say Sheridan was unhappy with the new regime. His trusted executives were marginalized, budgets questioned, his previously near untouchable creative space under pressure. Simultaneously, rival studios smelled opportunity. NBCUniversal, with its streaming service Peacock and legacy brand Universal Pictures, began making aggressive moves. The fabled cowboy poet of modern Hollywood looked around and saw fresh terrain. The deal came together. Sheridan, via his production partner 101 Studios, signed a long-term overall deal with NBCUniversal, films and television, to begin in earnest after his Paramount commitments finish. He will remain with Paramount until his current contract ends, reportedly 2029 for TV, but will begin a film deal earlier. Why this move? Several threads intertwined. Creative freedom. Sheridan has built his reputation on telling things his way. If he felt constrained at Paramount under the new regime, a fresh partnership may give him the autonomy he seeks. Financial scale and ambition. The deal with NBCUniversal is described as nine-figure and multi-year, reflecting Sheridan's market value. Transition timing. Sheridan will not abandon his Paramount commitments immediately. He will continue his existing shows until 2029, ensuring the Dutton saga and the Yellowstone universe remain intact for fans. Strategic positioning. NBCUniversal is making a play to reinforce its film-TV dominance in a changing streaming world. Sheridan gives them a voice that appeals to audiences across America, not just the coasts. Let's rewind to the final days of new Paramount era. Executives shuffle, budgets tighten, talk of layoffs and cost cuts swirl, even as Sheridan's shows still dominate. The man who once got $50,000 a week to shoot at his own ranch now faces new scrutiny. Meanwhile, Sheridan's production base in Texas expands. Earlier in 2025, he announced plans to build a 450,000 square foot film-TV studio outside Fort Worth, in partnership with Ross Perot Jr.'s Hillwood Company and Paramount Television. Among industry watchers, this move signaled that Sheridan was building infrastructure for the long haul. Not just a series or two, but an empire. The key internal situation: Sheridan's shows have increasingly appealed not only to Middle America, but urban markets too. His themes of tradition, grit, land, and power cross demographic lines. That universal appeal raises his value. Now, we arrive at the announcement. On October 26, 2025, Puck News reported the scoop. Taylor Sheridan is leaving Paramount for NBCUniversal. With all the details, the Wall Street Journal followed shortly, confirming the move and noting that Sheridan will create films for Universal Pictures and TV content for NBC and Peacock when the time comes. The industry responded with shock and admiration. Paramount, having relied on Sheridan's output, faces the loss of one of its creative cornerstones. NBCUniversal, meanwhile, celebrates a coup. Sheridan, for his part, stands in the open plain, boots planted in Texas, gaze fixed on the horizon. What does this mean for his existing shows at Paramount? They remain. Yellowstone, its spin-offs, Landman, Tulsa King, all remain under his oversight until his film deal begins. But what he builds next, after 2029, will be entirely new terrain. He will craft new IP for NBCUniversal. He will bring his worldview to new platforms, new stories, perhaps new genres. In essence, Sheridan is both departure and arrival. He departs Paramount, the longtime home of his biggest successes. He arrives at NBCUniversal as the vanguard of his next era. We pause once more on the image of Sheridan standing on his Texas ranch at sunset, the sky behind him golden and wild. He has built a world of rugged American myth. Now he steps into a new world. The wind carries the promise of new frontier stories, of characters still shaped by land and legacy, now unbound by one studio's walls. And for us viewers, the question hangs: what wild, epic story will Taylor Sheridan bring next? Where will his boots hit the ground? In the deserts of Texas? The streets of New Orleans? The snow-capped peaks of Montana's future saga? We will be watching, because in every frame he shoots, in every script he writes, Taylor Sheridan invites us back to the land. And once again, he is bidding us to come along. If this tale of Hollywood's reigning modern Western auteur moving into his next chapter speaks to you, if you live for stories that span wide horizons, that clash tradition with innovation, that build universes from dust and shadow, then stay tuned. Because the next chapter of Taylor Sheridan's saga is about to begin. Hit subscribe, like the video, share it with fellow fans of bold storytelling. Follow for updates on his upcoming projects, the first look deals, the new IP, and the revealing of his next frontier. The man who built the Dutton saga is going home, to the land, to the story, to the next big leap. And we will be there, in the wide open, watching.